So let me pull up my screen, and we're sort of going high tech tonight. I'm at Michael's, and he's got a network that's got a much higher bandwidth than I do. So hopefully the video will be stutter free. So just going back a little bit, reviewing from the very first, oops, I didn't want to do that yet. Come back here, going the wrong way. The very first talk on geography and demographics, I presented this information right here, information I found on the internet about racial makeup of Cuba, data from 2012. And one of the challenges is they report race differently than we do. They say that 64% of the population in Cuba is white, 9% is black, and then 27% is mulatto and mestizo. The term in Spanish, mestizo, means mixed. And throughout Latin America, it's used to describe people with a mixed ancestry with a white European and indigenous background. The term mulatto refers also to mixed race ancestry that includes white European and black African roots, what might be called Afro-Cuban. In the United States numbers, it lists white non-Hispanic as 63%, black 13%, and Hispanic as 15%. Hispanic in Cuba I believe, would be considered white. So we'd have Hispanic plus white non-Hispanic being equivalent to the 64% in Cuba. And the mulatto portion of the middle group in Cuba would probably be considered black in the United States. You have a drop of black blood in you, you used to be and still often are considered black. And the mestizo would probably fall under Hispanic. So it's not, we're talking apples and oranges here. And there's an interesting article written by the Pew Research Center. The title of it's Mestizo and Mulatto, Mixed Race Identities Among U.S. Hispanics. So if that's something you want to delve into, that's a resource to pursue.
Well, now they're giving you the option of saying black and also Hispanic.
Yeah, you can pick multiple if you want, as many as you want.
Right.
But who knows what's going to come out of this year's census?
George, if I could point out, having watched all of the videos, the language is an issue in I think it was Peru, that if you ask people what race they describe themselves as, they have 100 different words, and it's mushy. I mean, it's not, we tend to be much more definitive about it, but each place has had to develop its some way of referring to these issues. So
it's very difficult to be able to be doing comparisons back in the Civil War era, I suppose, and before. You could be a quadroon or an octoroon if you were 1/4 or 1/8 black.
But you were still black.
You were still black, but you were not as black.
Yeah, that one drop, right?
That's all it takes. If truth be told, we all have at least one drop. We just
yes.
And if you talk to biologists and maybe some sociologists, the concept of race itself is not settled, whether there really are multiple races of the Homo sapiens. So it's a real challenge. But as a starting point, Lori had identified this series that was presented on PBS, hosted by Henry Louis Gates Jr., who has done a whole series of different videos for PBS relating to race issues, African American Lives 1 and 2, Oprah's Roots, Looking for Lincoln, and most recently, The Faces of America. He did a trilogy, including Wonders of the African World,
yeah, it was good.
America Beyond the Color Line, and then this one right here, Black and Latin America. And this was presented in 2011, so it's 9 years ago. I'm not sure that opinions have changed much, but it's certainly not the most current. But before I start that, I want to point out some other interesting sites that you might want to look at. Well, let me, I got ahead of myself. So these were the 4 different episodes, and my control panel is blocking out, but the top one was the first in this series. The second one was Cuba. The third one was Brazil. And then the fourth one is Mexico and Peru. So we're going to look at the one, the number 2 one, Black in Latin America, Cuba. And in this one, Gates talks about how culture, religion, politics, and music of Cuba are inextricably linked to the huge amount of slave labor that was imported to produce the sugar industry, the crops of the sugar industry, and then how race and racism have fared since Castro's revolution. So this link at the bottom of this page is the YouTube video that I found that you can actually watch all the way through. There are official PBS videos of this, and when you check on them, you're not allowed to play them. As Lorinda discovered a little bit earlier today, we were chatting before we got started. There are a couple of other videos that you might find of interest. There's one titled Interviews from Havana, Blacks at Cuba. This was first aired in 2015 and was produced by Telesur. Telesur is a Latin American television network, both satellite network and land-based, that's headquartered in Caracas, Venezuela, sponsored primarily by the government of Venezuela with funding from Cuba and Nicaragua. It was launched under the government of Hugo Chavez, who is now dead, with the aim of being a Latin socialist answer to CNN. And it's actually an interview of a woman, a Black woman in Cuba, who did a documentary. Well, it's not the documentary itself, it's interviewing the woman who produced it. There's another one that's shorter, Afro Cuba Libre. And then there's another one called Cuba, the Real Cuba Raw Documentary. So those are all options that you might find of interest. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but before I move on to the video, I want to show you a couple things. I just got 2 books that you might find of interest. We learned about these at the Cuban Partners Network meeting when we had a speaker named William Leo Grande, or Leo Graham, who was at American University. The first book came out just in the last year. It's called Cuba at the Crossroads. And it's about the politics and economics and all the other things affecting Cuba in present day. And actually, the full title is, the introduction is an overview of Cuba from 2006 to 2019. The other book that he told us, and that's a series of essays. The other book that he told us about that's real interesting, although it's a bit thick. This is called Back Channel to Cuba. And this book describes all the behind the scenes negotiation that went on between Fidel Castro, President Obama, and the Pope that led to opening up of the embassy in Havana and easing of restrictions in Cuba for Americans. So I have both of those books if anybody wants to borrow either one. I'm not personally much on reading history, but these are interesting and relevant. So if you're interested, let me know and I can find a way to share them with you. So I'm going to let Michael take over. We're doing high tech tonight. We're at Michael's house.
All right. Yeah. For reasons he doesn't understand and I'm not going to explain, we're going to switch to my computer to stream the video. So go ahead and first mute your computer.
I have to mute my computer.
Not just your audio. You have to mute the whole computer.
I did.
All right.